buat Euro USD sendiri ngerespon ya teman-teman.
Bear market bottoms itu sampai
lanjut aja. Anjir sedih banget sih cuy. Los.
Kalau aku gak lolos gimana bang?
Kalau lolos kamu nggak lolos aku nggak peduli. Pani mana Pani?
Gendong aku gak sih bang?
Ayo bisa. Ayo, riset nanti dia nggak bisa masuk.
Discover our vast collection of over 3.
This is in all likelihood Powell's last speech at Jackson Hole as Fed chair, and yet the framework is not the Fed chair's framework. It's the committee's framework. It is an agreement that they make together, and it isn't about one person. And also, this has been his tenure the last 5 years. So an exercise in accountability and them saying, some of the assumptions we made in 2020, those didn't turn out to be the right assumptions. We've got to make some adjustments. So it's a great time. And above all, they told us 5 years ago they were going to do this review. There's a lot that's changed. It's not a comfortable environment for the Fed to be out in public.
True.
But they're doing the review. And that is so reassuring that we have a process that's working as planned.
We'd love to hear your assumptions on a few things, and particularly the labour market. So let's start with that. You know the source of great division on Wall Street at the moment, and that's whether the step down in payrolls growth is a factor because of what we've seen in the economy, a cyclical turn, or maybe a structural shift with what we've seen on the supply side of the labour market. Claudia, do you have a bias as to which one it is right now?
It's almost certainly both. I think there's a lot of supply side in there right now. And we can see this utilization numbers, like the unemployment rate has been basically flat, right? So we're not seeing the unemployment rate climb as of yet. And also wage growth has not really, weakened. And those would be signs that it's demand. Now, there are absolutely risks in the labor market, and they're not hypothetical anymore. We can point to data that slowing jobs growth could be a real issue. And yet there are policies, supply policies that are at play too. And when we think about the Fed and the way the Fed thinks about the labor market, it's important to remember the Fed does not fight the trend. It can't fight the labor supply. It's trying to smooth out the sharp movements in demand that, can cause, a weakening in the labor market. So it's a tricky situation, but I think there really are signs that a good bit of this is supply, and it is almost exactly the reverse of what we were trying to sift through last year when we had the surge in immigration.
Claudia, this makes it really, really difficult to communicate anything at the Federal Reserve. And given the title of this year's get-together is a labour market in transition, do you believe that the chairman has to make a call here going into September as to the dominant factor he thinks is driving markets, the labour market specifically, at the moment?
I doubt that he'll give us the full picture. I mean, it's one that's still developing. Again, I think by widening and not just saying, oh, well, yes, labor market's weakening, that job growth is too low. Like, he's not going to make a definitive statement that things are really, the risks are really rising rapidly. I think it'll lay out all the different pieces that they're grappling with. And what better thing for them to spend a weekend grappling with the research and talking to scholars and people in the area than structural changes in the labor market. Right? Like, they need to be as on the cutting edge as they can be as they sift through the data and they decide the policy, but they're not there yet. And he's not going to front run the committee and make the decision for September. What possible good would that do? He can be transparent about the process, be honest about what they see in the data, and, we'll see where this goes in terms of a decision. I do expect him to affirm that the next move will probably be a cut, right? We're talking about timing here.
Yep.
We're not, talking about, do they raise rates next? So I think, we just keep it all in context. We're not going to get the answer that maybe investors are looking for, but that's because the Fed is still deliberating.
Claudia Sam with the latest on the labour market and the Federal Reserve. Claudia, thank you. Claudia Sam of New Century Advisors. He's not going to get over his skis here. We've got 2 more big data points to come in the next month. He is facing down a very divided Federal Reserve. How committed can he be to a September call? And we've heard a lot of people on the programme already this morning saying probably a very non-committal Fed chair on Friday.
Yeah, this was what I was trying to get at, not just that I was going to go hiking, but that ultimately, if you're looking for a clean answer in Jackson Hole, you're probably not going to get it. You are going to get a framework, and then people will tell you whether it's dovish or hawkish, and you're going to hear them then discuss that for the next 2 weeks because there isn't a lot of other news for them to discuss. But ultimately, that is going to be the tenor of discussion coming out of Jackson Hole.
What's the source of the step down in payrolls growth in the labour market?
That's
I think
key.
that's ultimately the key question for me into Friday. We haven't heard really from the chairman since we had that payrolls report, and that's going to be what sets up this market going forward, I think.
Is this just an issue of people not coming into the country as quickly or even departing, and not necessarily a sign of real weakness under the hood? And that really is the key question for policy going forward.
Remember that line, an ounce of protection is worth a pound of cure? Cut now so you don't have to cut even more later on. I wonder if that argument wins out in September too.
At the same time, what we just heard from Claudia Sahm, really key. That worked at a time where we were combating low inflation, where we were combating the zero bound. Does that work at a time where inflation is very much of a preeminent concern?
The Fed's bias is still to ease. How constrained is that easing bias? We'll have that debate through the week as we anticipate that speech from Chairman Powell going into Friday. Let's get you an update on stories worldwide with your Bloomberg Brief. Let's cross over to Yahira. Hey, Yahira.
Hi, John. More troops are heading to Washington. GOP governors from South Carolina, West Virginia, and Ohio are deploying additional National Guard personnel to D.C. at the Trump administration's request. West Virginia said it would send up to 400, South Carolina 200, and Ohio 150, adding to the 800 already mobilized in the nation's capital to combat crime, according to President Trump. Meanwhile, White House trade advisor Peter Navarro is out with some strong criticism of India's purchases of Russian oil. In an FT piece, he writes American consumers buy Indian goods and India uses those dollars to buy discounted Russian crude. He went on to say India needs to start acting like a strategic partner of the U.S. if it wants to be treated as one. And gotta mention this one again because it was incredible. Scotty Scheffler pulled off an incredible shot to win the 2025 BMW Championship yesterday. The world's #1 landed a wild chip in on the 17th hole at Caves Valley in Maryland. The two-shot win over Bobby McIntyre was Scheffler's 5th of the season and his 12th in the last 2 years on the PGA Tour. Incredible. That's your Bloomberg Brief. John?
Ton of money as well. Yahara, thank you. I think there's a $40 million purse at the Tour Championship next week. So congrats, Scotty, on another big win. Up next on the program, we'll set you up for the day ahead. We'll catch up with Mike McKee to look ahead to that big Federal Reserve speech coming up on Friday.
You've said 25% last year, I believe, of Google's code is AI generated. You have over 180,000 employees right now. Is it half that in the future?
I expect we will grow from our current engineering base even into next year, right? Because it allows us to do more, right? I think the opportunity space is also increasing. I just view this as making engineers dramatically more productive. Getting a lot of the mundane aspects out of what they do, allowing them to spend on higher value-added tasks. But that means it's an accelerator. People will be able to do more, which means maybe we'll create new products, and hence we will need more people. At least in the near term, to me, it looks like we will expand engineering velocity, And that doesn't mean we're constrained in what we will do. We'll end up doing more as a company as well.
Listen carefully. Can you hear the rhythm in the markets? Not just in the syncopations triggered by inflation, but in the preludes leading to global elections, in the dissonance that moves the Nikkei, and the rising course conducted by AI. There's music in the markets, and if you want to learn to listen for it, we'll show you how.
Our global headquarters in New York, I'm Danny Berger. Welcome to Bloomberg Brief. Let's set your agenda.
Bloomberg Brief delivers the market news, data, and analysis you need live every weekday only on Bloomberg. Context changes everything. It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. We'll show you what's happening in ETFs like no one else. ETF IQ, only on Bloomberg.
I think the Fed should cut, but I think they're going to cut for the wrong reason. You don't want to have a scenario where tech and tech capex slows down and you can't hand the baton off to that other part of the economy that's struggling. If you keep rates this restrictive for longer and you punish those parts of the economy so severely, you won't be able to hand off that baton. You're going to have to cut. You're moving in that direction.
That was Steve Chevron of Federated Hermes looking ahead to rate cuts from the Federal Reserve. But he thinks this economy is about to re-accelerate, and he's still bullish this market. A market that comes into a brand new trading week close to all-time highs, down just 0.1% on the S&P 500, down by a similar amount on the Nasdaq 100. That's the price action as we count you down to the opening bell, about 40 minutes away. Here's the trading diary for the week ahead. Later on today, President Trump hosting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and other European leaders at the White House. Tomorrow, Home Depot earnings. Wednesday, Fed Minutes Plus, results from Lowe's and Target. On Thursday, another round of jobless claims and earnings from Walmart. And on Friday, it's the main event on Friday, remarks from Fed Chair Jay Powell in Jackson Hole. Down in Jackson Hole, Bloomberg's Mike McKee is back with us for more. Mike, looking forward to a conversation you're set to have through the week with Governor Mickey Bowman. One of the dissents, Mike. How aggressive is that dissent going to be in a month to come if they don't cut interest rates?
Well, that's an interesting question because she gave a speech at the end of last week suggesting that she still believes they should cut in September and that they should cut 3 times this year. So she's still in that camp of the job numbers are bad, and that suggested that the economy is slowing down and the Fed should get ahead of it. Chris Waller has reaffirmed he's still in kind of the same position. So we'll have those two. The open question is, would there be a possibility that Stephen Myron would be confirmed by then and add a third dissent? I'm not sure Jay Powell would care since he's going to be leaving. And at this point, the rest of the Fed doesn't seem ready to cut rates, but they're moving in that direction if the data continue to show weakness.
Mike, I just got this message as you and I are talking. It comes from a Bloomberg subscriber. They say this: cutting more now so they don't have to do more in the future would be irresponsible for the Fed. It would create an even bigger bubble, assuming there is one right now, which would create another crisis when it inevitably bursts. That's just a view from Wall Street at the moment, Mike. But Lisa asked a similar question. Equities at all-time highs, credit spreads very tight. From the market's perspective, is this a market screaming for rate cuts?
The market is screaming for rate cuts because the wish is always father to the man. But remember what happened in 2000 when the Fed started cutting rates. We ended up having a bubble burst, and we had a problem with the economy. It wasn't as bad as some others, but the Fed is aware of that, and they're going to be very cautious about what they do. They also recognize that a lot of this is psychological. They cut rates, the markets go up, everybody's happy, but the rate cut doesn't hit the economy until sometime next year. So it's all a question of managing expectations, which will make Jay Powell's speech even more interesting.
Mike McKee, looking forward to catching up with you through the week, and Lisa will be on her way with TCAN the next couple of days, so looking forward to that too. Michael, thank you, sir. Financial conditions versus economic conditions. I think it was Neil Dutta of Renmac talking about that a little bit earlier on this morning. There's a key distinction to make.
Yeah, although at the same time, what happens is if you try to ease monetary conditions, then financial conditions will just get that much easier. So even though economic conditions might be relatively tight when it comes to lower income consumers and credit card debt, which is usually pegged to the front end, it's not clear that really it's going to help things as much as it might hurt if you do cut rates and foster asset prices just to go that much higher.
We've both been to a few of these. This one feels different. The president really does loom large going into this meeting. Now, of course, Chairman Powell is very unlikely to address that head on, but it's something that looms large for a lot of us all to think about at that particular get-together.
I'll give you this anecdote. Earlier this year, at the IMF spring meetings, there was a talk behind closed doors where Jay Powell spoke to other central bankers from around the world and reiterated the importance of the independence of the central bank. And there was a standing ovation for a prolonged period of time, according to a number of sources who were in the room. And it just underscores how they're not going to come out and talk about it publicly, but it is very much there present in their minds.
But also, this is, in a sense, a legacy speech for Jay Powell. This is his final Jackson Hole before he has to give up his chairmanship. And Mike McKee just said it there. Why does he care? He's on his way out. Well, is he? He has yet to tell the president or the Treasury Secretary that he is going to give up his governor's seat when his chairmanship ends.
Conducting a framework review as a lame duck Fed chair. That's quite a challenging moment.
Yeah, although, as we heard from Claudia Sahm, it also might be a chance for him to say, look, this is what we got wrong and this is what we got right. This is how I understand the record. I'm going to define my record before somebody else does it for me.
I think they're already trying to do it for him.
I am positive they are, so might as well get his view in there and throw it in the ring.
He's going to try at least that coming Friday, this coming Friday. That's the main event for financial markets worldwide. Equities doing OK to kick off a trading week. A quiet start, as I've said, to a very, very busy trading week. Futures down by about 0.1% on the S&P. Coming up tomorrow, the coverage continues. We'll catch up with Brian Levitt of Invesco. We'll speak to Sarah Hunt of Alpine Saxon Woods, Priya Misra of JP Morgan Asset Management and Jim Karen of Morgan Stanley. Equities close to all-time highs. Credit spreads are tight, tight, tight. And we're having a conversation about the Federal Reserve delivering rate cuts next month. From New York City, thank you for choosing Bloomberg TV. This was Bloomberg Surveillance. It's the most fascinating time for the global economy in years, and our conversations are front and center.
We're stress testing consequential ideas, and investors around the world are scoring them in real time, helping to translate the policies from Washington into actionable ideas for Wall Street.
It's the morning call you actually want to be a part of.
Separating the signal from the noise, with some fun along the way.
This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
How much does the geopolitical volatility emanating from the United States perhaps undermine the bull case for Mexico? Is that a scenario you've plotted out?
Structurally speaking, we do still have a very positive view in Mexico. On the macro side, it is a very attractive investment geography for the U.S. Mexico is hugely competitive in terms of costs. The wages in Mexico are much more competitive than the wages in China. So why would the U.S. companies not take advantage of that?
And this structural cost advantage is going to lead Mexico to continue to contribute to the growth of U.S. as well. The value chains, the supply chains are so integrated that Mexico has to play a continuing role in the further development of the U.S. And U.S. is growing very healthily, very nicely. It will benefit Mexico. This way or that way, it will benefit Mexico.
Mexico for BBVA is, a source of resiliency of earnings, and it generates, it complements the diversification that we have from the footprint. But there's another topic that is very important, which sometimes we don't focus a lot about, and why we're so convinced that Mexico is going to continue to do well, which is the leverage in the country. Because the leverage in the country is only 33%. And when you've seen Mexico grow and BBVA grow in Mexico, structurally speaking, the leverage is so low that just a little bit of growth in the leverage is going to be able to support that bull case in Mexico. So that's why we're structurally positive in Mexico.
In case you missed it on the close.
With regards to the electric vehicle business, when we talk about the commitment to new models and more importantly, commitment to the infrastructure to support that, what's the plan?
We're starting to see different kinds of hybrids that customers are excited about. E-revs, which go about 100 miles all electric, but then you could take a 700-mile trip once in a while. Those look really promising for a three-row crossover like Explorer. We're going very low end, super affordable EVs for urban duty cycles and for commercial. We're not going to invest in a lot of the very expensive expensive crossovers for pure EV. We think that's going to be a hybrid business.
What does the supply chain look like specifically for the EV and hybrid business right now?
We've moved out our cycle plans. We focused on affordable and commercial. We're fortunate we moved 3 or 4 years ago, and we could tilt to hybrid and a specific kind of EV. And the supply chain has been able to move with us so far.
Don't miss The Close, live every weekday.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute energy news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Joanna Bercecci in Vienna, and this is Bloomberg.
Futures, a little change to kick off the week. 30 minutes, though, until the start of trading. We're hoping to get pumped up today. I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Katie Greifeld. Bloomberg Open Interest starts right now.
Coming up, geopolitics back in the spotlight as Ukraine's president and his European allies head to the White House. Meanwhile, central bankers are flocking to Jackson Hole, where Fed Chair Powell could signal a shift in policy, and retail earnings are on deck this week as we head into the final stretch of earnings season. It does come to an end. Katie, what are you watching?
I'm keeping an eye on shares of Novo Nordisk right now. The FDA approved Novo Nordisk's weight loss drug Wegovy to treat a serious form of liver disease. That is welcome news, of course, for shareholders, considering this stock is down about 39% year to date. They'll chip away at some of that today if this gain holds, currently up about 3.6% pre-market.
All right, from healthcare to the health of the consumer, we're going to get a look today at what tariffs have done in terms of costs and earnings from Walmart, Target, Home Depot, and more all week long. So we're going to focus in on the retailers. You can see they're moving in slightly different directions ahead of the start of trading on this Monday. But this is going to be a very busy week for retail numbers, Katie.
Absolutely. We'll dig into all of that coming up. But let's get back to geopolitics. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and his European allies will be at the White House this afternoon to find out what President Trump learned at his summit with Vladimir Putin. A deal, however, not in sight.
I believe we had a very productive meeting. There were many, many points that we agreed on, most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite got there, but we've made some headway. So there's no deal until there's a deal.
Let's bring in Bloomberg's Anne-Marie Horton, our chief political correspondent, co-host of Surveillance, and a lot of pomp and circumstance with little in terms of results, right? What did the president get in Alaska, first of all, in terms of deliverables for today?
Well, a lot remains to be seen. We all left there kind of scratching our heads. It felt very awkward at the end of that press conference because this is a president that has a propensity to want to take questions, to want to brief the press. Vladimir Putin spoke first. He talked about there were agreements. He also talked about the fact that in this meeting, it went beyond just Ukraine. He said he wanted the U.S. and Russia to get back to more pragmatic and a more business-like approach. And the president was really clear, though. He said there's no deal until there's a deal. And he put a lot of weight on the fact that he had to go take these conversations that he had with Putin back to his European counterparts, and most importantly, to Volodymyr Zelensky. Not just did he brief them, but now you have these European leaders descending on Washington, D.C., as well as President Zelensky. But then throughout the weekend, we got a little bit more details because Secretary Rubio went on the Sunday shows, as well as Ambassador Steve Witkoff. And it seems like there's two basically paths at play. One, there needs to be a serious discussion about territory, and this is really the third rail when it comes to Ukraine. Are they willing to give up what Putin wants, which is all of the Donbass? And it's not just the land that Ukraine currently holds, most notably about 25% in Donetsk. It's the fact that they've been able to fortify 3 major cities to actually have a defense posture. Without that, it's pretty much wide open if Russia wanted to have another incursion. Then the other big takeaway is going to be security guarantees. Steve Witkoff talked a lot about this over the weekend. What does this, like Article 5 NATO security arrangement, actually mean? What is the U.S. willing to give? This is interesting because this is the conversation Zelensky wanted to have 6 months ago when he was in the Oval Office and they had that huge blow up.
And I have to imagine that security guarantees from the part of President Zelensky will be the big topic of conversation, as you say. When it comes to U.S. involvement, what messaging have we gotten from the president when it comes to that topic?
Well, this is the issue. We need the details. If it's not going to be NATO, what does NATO like Article 5 actually mean? The fact is, we don't know yet. Even his own aides were talking about these are concepts of a plan, ideas of a plan. It was floated months ago by the Italian leader, Giorgia Meloni, who's going to be there in the room. Can they get to an agreement where Zelensky feels like it is enough an insurance that he can take this back and basically give a concession potentially when it comes to territory and land, which is going to be really challenging for him to accept and then bring back to the Ukrainian people? Does it mean American boots on the ground? Likely not. But also, you have to think there were security assurances or guarantees or agreements in the past. There was a Budapest Memorandum in 1994. There's been a number of Minsk agreements. It actually hasn't stopped in terms of Putin's incursions on Ukraine.
Important context there. Hoping to get more details this afternoon. That is Bloomberg's Anne-Marie Hordern, fresh off a trip to Alaska. Traders will also have their eyes on Jackson Hole this week, where Fed Chair Jerome Powell is set to deliver his annual speech on Friday. Here to take a look at the week ahead is Michael McKee. He is Bloomberg International Economics and Policy Correspondent. He joins us from Jackson, Wyoming. So, Mike, you think about the stage of Jackson Hole. This is an opportunity that Fed chairs often take to make policy pronouncements. It's also Jerome Powell's last speech as chairman of the Federal Reserve. What are we expecting on Friday?
Well, we're not exactly sure. Originally, the thought was he would unveil the changes the Fed is making to its framework of how they look at monetary policy. But now there's this added aspect of, are they going to cut rates in September? The Fed has wanted to keep their options open. So Powell may not go so far as he did last year when he said it was time to cut rates, and the markets took off at that point. Because if they get to September and we have inflation rising, and they still have poor employment numbers, the Fed's going to be in a dilemma. So he doesn't want the markets to lock in on a rate cut, but he does want to give some hope that the Fed is aware of what's going on in the economy. It'll be a tightrope for him to walk.
All right, Mike, thanks very much. Mike McKee, we're going to be checking back in with you a lot this week out of Jackson Hole. This week is also going to be a very busy one for retail earnings. As I said at the top, Home Depot reports, Target, Lowe's, Walmart, all of them out this week. The results will shine a spotlight on the health of the U.S. consumer, important to those at Jackson Hole as well. Joining us now here in New York City's Bloomberg stocks reporter Matthew Griffin. So, Matthew, what are we hoping to learn specifically about the consumer in these reports?
It's worth thinking about the context that we're in here, which is that corporate earnings growth kind of broadly has held up really well this quarter. At the same time, there are reasons to believe that the full impact of the tariffs that have gone into place has not been felt yet. So investors are looking for signs of where we're going, and we could get some of that out of these reports. There's a few things. One, are consumers continuing to spend, or are they pulling back? Two, are they trading down to cheaper goods because they're under pressure? And three, really crucially, are companies eating the impact of tariffs themselves? Are they paying those costs, which could weigh on their margins? Or are they passing them on to the U.S. consumer, which could just pile on more pressure?
Well, that is the big question, right? Across industries, but it's particularly urgent when it comes to some of these retail names. We have heard from some companies in this sector already. I think about Tapestry, for example. What can we extrapolate out from what we've already heard into what we're going to get this week?
So I think all we can say really broadly is we may be in for a little bit of volatility. I mean, Tapestry, investors punished them after they said that tariffs would hit their bottom line. If you think about retail kind of broadly, Advance Auto Parts, similar commentary, similar reaction. At the same time, not all of these companies they function the same, and that's worth keeping in mind. So your companies that sell staple goods, your food, your toilet paper, are a little bit more insulated. Walmart's in that category. It's worth keeping in mind, too, at the same time, that some of those companies are priced to reflect that. Walmart is an expensive stock, so the upside could be limited there. But yeah, again, we could just be in for some volatility, even if things are strong in a general sense.
Absolutely. And it's important to keep in mind, like you said, we can't paint with a broad brush here. There's a lot of idiosyncrasies Why did I say that word? That's a hard one.
Anyway,
there's a lot of nuance. Matt Griffin, great preview of the retail earnings we have.
Idiosyncrasies.
There you go. You can be in charge of saying that word from now on. We do have some breaking news. We mentioned Novo Nordisk at the top of the show, and we just got this news at 9 a.m. that the pharma company is partnering with GoodRx to offer its GLP-1 drugs Ozempic and Wegovy for $500, $499 to be exact. That is half the list price. You can see the stock is rising on the news here. We know that, of course, the price tag on these drugs.
It's so fascinating that they've made it seem like that's a deal. So, but you're still paying essentially a car lease, right, to get these drugs, and probably, you know, not even a few milliliters are costing you $125 a week.
Well, I have great news for you and for our viewers. We're going to speak with Wendy Barnes. She's the GoodRx CEO on this news later on in the show at about 10:10 a.m.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, it should be a good conversation. Let's quickly check on futures here in the pre-market. It's a brand new trading week, and we are about 20 minutes away from the opening bell. There wasn't too much movement when we checked about 10 minutes ago. It's pretty much the same conversation. Right now, the S&P 500, the Nasdaq 100, down slightly in the pre-market trade. The Russell 2000 peeking into the green here, but not too much action. But we know it's a very hefty week on the earnings front, the geopolitical front, and of course the economic front as well.
Yeah, that's right. We have Palo Alto earnings coming up. They should provide shareholders more detail about the $25 billion deal for CyberArk, and then of course all the consumer news that we talked about, Jackson Hole, geopolitical. There's a lot going on that you don't see in the little movement of the indexes. This is Open Interest.
Asia is at the forefront of some of the world's biggest stories. I'm Sherrian in Tokyo.
And I'm Heidi Stroud-Watts here in Sydney, where the trading day begins. We're here in the center of all the action to get you set up with the numbers, news, and knowledge you need for the day ahead.
The demand is indeed recovering.
We've been waiting for this moment.
The opportunity of a century.
Join us on Bloomberg Asia Trade, weekdays only on Bloomberg TV. Context changes everything.
We published a story recently about the explosion of robotic companies and innovation in China. I think we said there's something like 50 or 60 robotic startups in China. Are we behind, and should we be concerned about that?
I think as far as the state of innovation, no. Most of those robots aren't built for work, for the things that, which is the entry point for these robots today. They can do some interesting things. A lot of times, it's backflips or making coffee or something, but not really useful work. These robots can pick up to 50 pounds on our next generation. So they're great for the education of robotics, getting people interested. But as far as humanoids, they've got to check that safety box before they can come into any of the facilities here. And that's a big bar that we haven't seen much of out of the Chinese robots.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute economic news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Michael McKee in Victor, Idaho, and this is Bloomberg.
Making money isn't about drowning in emotions. It's about understanding what's actually happening. Markets are the best way to glean signal from noise, and that is what we try to do every morning. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Let's get now to high interest. Look at what's making headlines around the world. United Health is extending its Friday rally. The move sparked by a filing showing Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway bought 5 million shares in the quarter. David Tepper's Appaloosa Management also bought shares, 2.3 million to be exact, in United Health. Soho House has agreed to go private in a deal worth $2.7 billion. The members club said hotel owner MCR and its CEO will buy outstanding shares not held by certain shareholders for about $9 each. You can see the shares trading at $8.88. That's got to be good luck somewhere. Buyout firm Thoma Bravo is also in talks on a take private for Dayforce, a human resources management software provider. Sources telling us here at Bloomberg that a deal to take the company private could be announced as soon as in the next few weeks. And you can see those shares up 24%. Katie?
All right, Palo Alto out with earnings after the bell today. You have shares up nearly 2% this year. That's just about flat as investors await more details about its $25 billion bid for CyberArk. Bloomberg Intelligence Global Head of Tech Coverage, Mandeep Singh, says that the deal could drag on operating margin, but help competition against Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. I'm pleased to say that Mandeep joins us now. So talk us through that, because yes, that's a very big price tag, but it seems like when it comes to the fundamentals of the company, that this acquisition will certainly help there.
It will. And look, when it comes to security, what we
seems like we are losing Mandeep, which is a bummer because it'd be interesting to get the lay of the land here.
Yeah, I think it also tells you just a lot about the state of technology. We have all of these incredible tools. We have large language models that help us do so much, and we can't get internet routers that work.
I know, and it speaks to the benefits of being in the office and that organic conversation.
There are so many more benefits I could speak to on that front.
Yeah.
You know, I was looking for people in the office today because I want to collaborate on stories.
I know.
And everybody's seemingly working from home. Katie says it's a Monday, as if that's an excuse. It's still a weekday, right?
It's a Monday in August. People trickle in, you know, it just takes a while. Maybe they're not there at 8 a.m. on the dot. But when it comes to Palo Alto, we'll have to see. We'll get more details about what exactly their plans for CyberArk are. We know that at least Wedbush says that this is one of their top cyber picks for this year. So it'll be interesting to get those details. But
you know, I'm going to just watch the close at 4 o'clock. I guarantee that Romaine and Scarlett and Carol and Tim are going to be breaking those earnings line by line.
Yes, you know
as they
will.
cross. So waiting for Palo Alto. Checking on what's going on in futures this morning as we try to get going on this Monday. It's like we're robo-dosing through the mud here. Right now, looking at S&P futures down 0.1%. Nasdaq futures not moving a whole lot more, and Russell futures even less. So, I get this feeling that like there's so much happening, but there's nothing coming out of it, like the Alaska meeting between Presidents Trump and Putin.
Well, that's the thing. For all of the things that we're looking forward to this week, we're really in wait-and-see mode right now. We know we're going to get a very interesting read on the consumer and some of those reports, especially on Walmart. That's not until Thursday. We know that Jerome Powell is going to be interesting in some fashion. We don't hear from the man himself until Friday. And then when it comes to what's going on the geopolitical front, it's another wait and see. We know that the European allies are gathering at the White House this afternoon. We're all waiting for details on what exactly happened in Alaska, but we're just going to have to hang tight. And that's maybe why you see such muted movements in futures.
And I guess it's easy enough to do when you're hanging out at all-time highs, right? On stocks, on Bitcoin, risk assets just are really, I don't want to say frothy, but higher than we've ever seen them. Well, maybe there's a new multiple that we need to be thinking about here. Coming up, we'll talk about that with Joanne Feeney of Advisors Capital. She says some consumers could see tariffs impacting prices by up to 80%. We'll ask what areas of the retail economy she's watching. This is Open Interest.
Tune in to Bloomberg Business Week Daily.
We got to talk crypto.
From the magazine that helps global leaders stay ahead.
What's the conversation around your company?
Bringing you insight on the people, companies, and trends shaping today's complex economy.
Planning very big things.
A new level of premium.
Plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens.
The floodgates of innovation are going to open up.
You can't fake passion. You either are or you aren't.
Bloomberg Business Week Daily, only on Bloomberg.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute energy news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Joanna Bersetchi in Vienna, and this is Bloomberg.
Astonishing day for U.S. technology.
Shaping the region's technology ecosystem.
Asia's biggest tech news and innovation.
Good morning, this is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Karena kalau misalnya kita main IP, khawatir di kemudian hari
5% drawdown hariannya. Emang ada ya gitu kan, emang bisa gitu kan. Pertama emang kayak gitu ya kan. Bahkan kita juga pernah alami sampai 20% kan harian kalau lagi, apalagi scalping gitu ya kan.
Yes.
Otak panas ya, gitu, otak panas dan ya gitulah. Akhirnya ya udah saya coba dengan resiko besar loh Mas Wadi. Resikonya agresif
normal
saya
gitu
bilang.
Ya.
Malah agresif saya bilang kalau saya bilang
ya.
Resiko agresif dan ya itu ternyata bisa diatasi kok gitu dengan ya dengan teknikal yang udah saya pelajari gitu ya kan, dan alhamdulillah juga ya bro, ini pokoknya lu entry terserah apapun yang terjadi dah lupa ego dia untuk ini.
Lagi sama kualitas Pengu tadi udah nyicil ETH dari sekarang masuk akal nggak? Oke lah, nyicil BTC, nyicil Ethereum dari sekarang juga oke. Bagus tidur aja kalau
minum alkohol ini berapa kali? Minum alkohol ini berapa kali maksimum?
Orang sehari itu bisa. Oh, sehari boleh ya?
Hitungannya. Berarti tiap hari ya disarankan?
Utara matamu. Cuman kalau teman-teman mau rokok ya nggak apa-apa. Endingnya, kalian akan kembali ke saya. Bagi pasien.
Jadi kalau kalian merokok dan vape, dia tambah kaya, guys.
Tak buat tadi. Di depan kamera.
Dari kota apa?
Udah boleh. Licik juga ada orang ya, babi kali. Nek jenengan memang hidup lebih lama dari saya, ngapain kesini? Ya beli batu nisan, beres. Ada satu hal yang orang kaya tidak bisa buat.
Balik lagi, hari ini kita ditemani the only one Dr. Tirta. Ini dokter paling kaya se-Indonesia ya.
Oh enggak. Hei, salah itu. Baru sih kamu buka. Masih ada Dr. Richard Lee.
Oh iya.
Dr. Tompi.
Oh iya.
Salah.
Loh, tapi kan siapa tahu di belakang kayaknya.
Itu enggak. Anda tuh tidak tahu ya, setiap ada podcast saya suruh menjawab klarifikasi KPP Pratama. Saya sih nggak takut, cuma jawab klarifikasi kan butuh effort.
Iya.
Enggak, saya nggak boleh kaya. Saya lebih kaya Pak Richard Lee.
Oh iya.
Barusan ketemu kan? Udah ketemu Pak Richard Lee. Lebih kaya Pak Tompi. Enggak, receh saya, nggak kaya ya.
Merendah untuk meroket.
Chaos ini.
Oke, hari ini kita bahas topik yang sangat penting, yaitu kesehatan. Karena crypto bros itu nggak boleh sakit. Karena kita mantengin market, Dok, 24 jam. Terus kerja, saya ini sehari kerja 12-13 jam. Jadi sampai sekarang, normal.
Normal lah itu, orang kaya itu.
Gua tidur itu paling baru jam 2, jam 3, bangunnya jam 9, jam 10.
Baru tetap 8 jam?
Iya, tetap 8 jam. Nah, yang paling sehat nih, menurut seorang dokter, itu kardio atau angkat beban?
Jawabanku adalah justru pola makan.
Oh, bukan olahraga berarti nomor 2 ya?
Nomor 1 tuh pola makan.
Pola makan.
Jadi apa yang kamu makan itu mungkin kamu sepelein nih.
Yeah.
Banyak penyakit metabolik, entah itu mendera orang yang finansial terbatas atau yang kaya raya, itu penyakitnya sama karena pola makan yang buruk.
Contohnya?
Contoh, kamu tahu nggak kenapa orang kaya di seluruh dunia nyewa chef pribadi?
Betul.
Rata-rata orang yang sudah sangat settle, itu flashing-nya adalah punya chef pribadi, nutrisionis pribadi. Contoh, konsumsi protein di Indonesia per tahun, itu per tahun itu sama aja konsumsi proteinnya Singapura per bulan. Oh. Padahal protein itu yang paling penting buat membangun sel yang rusak, baik itu dari otot, saraf, otak, itu semua dari protein. Nah, terus nomor 2, keseimbangan makanan. Makanan yang terbaik adalah makanan yang variatif.
Maksudnya?
Jadi makanan kita harus seimbang, ada karbonya, ada proteinnya, ada mineral, ada vitamin dan kawan-kawan.
Oh, berarti diet karnivor itu malah tidak rekomen ya? Yang no karbo?
Boleh, terserah, semua ada risiko. Jadi ada orang yang kanan rata kanan, jadi dietnya pure karnivor. Ada yang rata kiri, pure plant based. Semua ada risikonya. Apa risikonya? Ada keseimbangan mikrobia di usus. Nah, ada orang yang kayak saya, tengah. Daripada memilih, saya dua-duanya. Nah, kalau kamu pola makannya teratur, itu bisa meminimalisir munculnya penyakit-penyakit metabolik. Dari bahkan dari cancer sampai metabolik. Nah, setelah kamu ngatur pola makan, baru kedua, kamu lakukan olahraga. Terserah, mau angkat beban atau kardio, itu bisa sama-sama baik. Nggak usah dipilih, lakuin aja dua-duanya. Dua-dua. Contoh,
Tapi kalau yang waktunya terbatas nih, Dok, kayak saya bisa. Harus milih satu aja. Angkat beban apa?
Loh, dua-duanya bisa dilakuin loh.
Oh iya dah.
Contoh, kamu punya waktu berapa menit?
Kalau nge-gym aku paling sejam setengah biasa.
Let's say kamu anggap 90 menit. Anggap 60 menit deh. Terlalu banyak 90 menit, 60 menit. 40 menit kamu angkat beban. 20 menit walking incline. Selesai. Atau gini, orang yang melakukan angkat beban tapi repetisi banyak, bukankah itu jadinya juga kardio?
Oh iya, betul.
Iya kan? Misal kamu
kan berdegup kan.
Misal kamu squat. Heavy squat. Misal PR-nya 80. Ya kita angkat aja 40, tapi rep-nya dibanyakin. Kan jadinya kardio. Jadi makanya aku herannya tuh lakuin dua-duanya. Kecuali goalmu memang bodybuilder. Kalau bodybuilder, angkat bebannya dibanyakin, kardionya dikitin. Kamu maraton jauh-jauh tuh. Ya kamu berarti angkat bebannya dikit, kardionya dibanyakin. Ya kalau kamu pengennya gimana?
Yang penting badan bentukan, ini udah bentukan. Tapi aku nggak bisa kayak terlalu yang besar ini. Kenapa nggak bisa besar?
Ya karena bisa jadi genetik. Aku juga lean. Lean, genetik. Aku nggak bisa yang bulk banget.
Iya, nggak bisa bulk banget. Ini kayak videografer gue, Bara ini lihat tangannya kalau gini, wah, cewek-cewek langsung.
Karena kita setuju, kamu sekarang di posisi udah settle. Kamu punya hypercar, punya rumah dan kawan-kawan. Ada satu yang nggak bisa dibeli pakai uang.
Kesehatan.
Iya, health. Fisik. Health bisa lah pakai insurance atau stem cell dan kawan-kawan. Tapi tampilan fisik itu sulit.
Makanya aku aktif nge-gym angkat beban itu seminggu 2-3 kali. Satu sesi 1,5 jam sampai 2 jam lah.
Dan menurutku seorang kamu, apalagi investment, kamu percaya kan bahwa future kita besok adalah longevity.
Makanya kita harus invest di kesehatan mulai dari sekarang.
Iya.
Betul kan?
Dan industri kesehatan yang di industri kesehatan valuasinya juga iya sama-sama halnya. Jadi lihat ya, pola makan dulu, baru lakuin olahraga.
Nah, aku juga selain olahraga sama itu, aku intermittent fasting dong.
Keren kali. Berapa? 18 jam?
Enggak sampai. Berarti aku ini sekitar 16,8.
Bagus dong.
16,8. Nah, kira-kira Dok, untuk follower yang baru memulai, karena waktu aku mulai intermittent fasting itu 2 minggu pertama kayak orang stres. Badan nggak terbiasa. Nah, ada tips nggak, Dok, buat follower-follower kita yang baru mau memulai IF itu supaya mereka bisa adapt? Gimana caranya?
Start slow.
Slow-nya itu berapa?
Jadi kenapa orang bisa stres? Karena kamu terbiasa intake gula.
Yes, betul.
Karbo. Dan karbo itu akan menjadi dependent. Namanya sugar rush. Nah, ketika intake karbo kita tiba-tiba berkurang, itu pasti bad mood. Ada terjadi perubahan hormon dan neurotransmitter sehingga kita jadi bad mood. Contoh, kenapa orang lapar cenderung cranky? Cranky marah-marah nesu-nesu dewe itu. Itu ya karena udah lapar, moodnya berantakan, neurotransmitter berubah, jadinya cranky. Nah, caranya adalah start slow. Jangan langsung 18-6. Ya kamu 12-12, 12-12, terus naikin lagi 13-11, sampai akhirnya 16-8, 18-6. Temenku tuh 24.
24? Buset, gak kuat.
Temenku ngelakuin
24.
Dan sampai akhirnya dia sekarang bukan 24 lagi, dia OMAD, 1 meal a day. Jadi dia 1 meal a day hanya di siang hari. Nah, kalau aku malah kebalikannya, aku makan 7 kali sehari.
7 kali?
Ya, karena olahragaku seminggu tuh bisa 1000 menit. Aku angkat beban tiap hari, calisthenics tiap hari, dan lari tiap hari karena goalku tuh ngejar race trail sama race endurance yang itu banyak kalori intake-nya. Kalau enggak habis otot.
Kalau habis otot, betul.
Ya, jadi kita tergantung goal kan. Ya, kalau aku malah biar kalian ya start slow. Kamu stres karena nggak start slow. Sama kayak kamu investment kan, nggak bisa instan.
Nggak bisa instan.
Jangan tiba-tiba kamu makan, misalkan kayak temanku Daniel, dia tiap kali makan 8 kali. Besoknya intermittent fast, langsung 24. Masuk IGD itu. Hipoglikemi. Pelan-pelan, start slow, pelan-pelan. Karena yang kita incar adalah sustainability. Jadi pelan-pelan. Buat apa kamu nanti melakukan diet yang kamu nggak happy, trauma, bad mood, terus nggak mau lagi.
Nah, dalam IF kan ada jendela makan nih, Dok. Boleh nggak dalam jendela makan ini kita makan something yang manis?
Gimana
Atau boleh dalam batas standar atau
tak jawab ya.
Ya.
Kamu boleh makan sesuatu yang manis kalau kamu aktivitas fisiknya bagus.
Oke.
Kalau kamu IF tapi aktivitas fisikmu jelek, jangan pernah makan manis.
Oke.
Kenapa aku bisa bilang kayak gitu? Gula itu bermanfaat bagi orang yang aktivitas fisiknya stabil.
Oke.
Kerjanya fisik.
Oke.
Kalau kamu kerja di depan laptop, fisiknya jarang. Itu gulanya masih minimal, masih bisa dibakar pakai fat.
Betul.
Nah, tapi kalau kamu aktivitas fisik kulik bangunan atau kamu long run besoknya, kamu butuh karbo.
Butuh gula.
Jadi tanggung jawab, responsibel. Kalau kamu pengen makan gula di jendela intermittent fast, ya aktivitas fisikmu ditambah.
Oke.
Betul. Jawabannya itu jelas ya?
Jelas. Nah, berikutnya, Bro. IF ini benefitnya apa? Nah, karena saya kan sering rekom orang-orang untuk IF kan, selain untuk jaga proporsional biar nggak buncit. Nah, supaya kalau kita jadi pembicara di seminar, perut ini kelihatan bagus. Nah, selain itu, IF ini benefitnya apa, Bro? Yang diketahui secara
lebih
umum.
ke mengatur kadar gula.
Kadar gula.
Ya, karena kalian harus tahu bahwa penyakit ginjal tuh rata-rata cuma karena 3 hal.
Apa tuh?
Kurang minum, kebanyakan gula, kebanyakan garam. Udah. Kurang minum itu akan mengakibatkan hipersaturasi. Jadinya kental banget di ginjal. Jadi ya zat-zat itu menjadi kristal.
Betul.
Kalsium jadi kristal, urium jadi kristal, dan kawan-kawan. Nah, sementara kalau gula kebanyakan, dia akan merusak sistematika ginjal, jadinya ganggu sistem kerja pankreas juga, jadinya diabetes, gula darah, hiperglikemi. Garam jadi kristal.
Oke.
Jadi sesimpel ini aja. Kalau menurutku ya 3 hal ini ya.
Berarti kalau seorang disuruh milih diwajibkan IF atau tidak, saran dokter wajib IF atau enggak?
Menurutku pilihan. Karena ada orang yang kayak aku harus bulking, tapi ada orang yang one meal a day. Yang penting kalau kamu udah yakin IF, jangan langsung tiba-tiba berat jendelanya. Kurangi yang bisa kamu kurangi. Jadi nggak usah saklek, kan nggak ada. Bukan kayak kamu IF terus gagal terus kamu dimarahin, enggak. Coba aja sesuai yang kamu happy. Misalkan kamu satu jendela itu masih minum, ya udah nggak apa-apa. Minumnya ada manis dikit. Kedepannya jangan. Karena gula ini kan kayak nikotin, harus perlahan.
Betul.
Itu alasan kenapa pas
gula itu kayak nikotin.
Gula itu kayak nikotin.
Aku udah ngerasain.
Cuman memang efeknya nikotin itu lebih berat.
Betul.
Karena ada asap ya. Sementara gula ada pankreas, nikotin tuh nggak bisa diolah. Dependable. Tapi kecanduannya, adiktifnya sama. Makanya yang aku bilang, kalau gula itu masih aman karena dia ada pankreas. Nikotin dan asap nggak ada. Cuman cara nasehatinya sama. Kalau kamu sudah kayak gini, startnya slow nguranginya. Dan harus dari niat yang kuat.
Oke, paham. Terus kemudian, Dok, sekarang masalah suplemen. Nah, sekarang kan kita ini udah kepala 3 nih.
Ya.
Kita harus mulai invest di kesehatan kan. Kira-kira nih, Dok, stem cell pengaruh apa enggak?
Masalahnya aku dermatologis, ada klinik, dan aku ada klinik dermatologis dan wellness center di Jogja.
Pakai stem cell?
Aku juga jual itu.
Stem cell?
Iya.
Minum atau yang injek?
Dua-duanya ada.
Dua-duanya ada.
Future itu masa depan.
Masa depan.
Kayak kamu percaya sama kripto kan? Aku percaya bahwa future-nya health di Indonesia, health industry, itu
Stem cell.
3 hal. Segala sesuatu yang terkait longevity. Nomor 2, segala sesuatu yang terkait anti-aging. sesuatu yang terkait tentang kuratif penyembuhan tanpa invasif.
Oh, tanpa
Jadi,
beda ya?
Tanpa beda. Jadi yang pertama, soal longevity. Orang tuh akan membayar apapun, melakukan apapun supaya dia awet muda, supaya umurnya panjang.
Betul, umurnya
Takut
panjang.
kematian.
Karena orang kaya pengen umur panjang dong.
Ya, longevity.
Iya.
Nah, salah satu saya adalah teknologi stem cell dan kawan-kawan itu untuk longevity. Kedua, anti-aging. Orang tuh takut tua. Dan itu alasan kenapa industri kesehatan yang terkait anti-aging itu tinggi. Yang ketiga adalah operasi non-invasif. Itu alasan teknologi kesehatan sekarang, operasi cuma 7 mm.
Ya, selubang kunci.
So, operasi cuma pakai kamera mikro. Karena semakin minimal invasifnya, semakin cepat recovery-nya, semakin kecil risikonya. Nah, akhirnya orang tuh akan rela membayar besar demi 3 hal ini. Nah, jadi kalau ditanya percaya sama stem cell,
percaya ya.
Menurutku itu akan menjadi masa depan yang hebat. Jadi jangan kaget kalau di masa datang umur manusia akan
lebih panjang.
Kebagi dua. Ada yang sangat panjang, ada yang cepat mati. Jadi nanti gapnya
tergantung finansial ya.
Iya. Jadi nanti sangat kesenjangannya jadi kayak
terlihat yang
apa ya kalau di game tuh distopia ya.
Iya, distopia. Betul.
Jadi kayak gapnya tuh gede banget, yang kaya tambah kaya, yang miskin tambah miskin, tengah tuh nggak ada. Yang tengah ini nanti geser, mau ke kanan atau ke kiri.
Betul. Dan stem cell ini kan ada macam-macam dok. Kayak papaku pernah nyoba ada yang dari rusa, terus ada juga yang minum kan. Aku stem cell yang minum.
Ada yang dari hari-hari.
Iya, ada yang dari hari-hari. Nah, recommend dok kalau.
Nggak bisa. No comment aku.
No comment.
Bisa. Kalau ditanya kenapa no comment? No comment.
Tapi kalau yang di tempat ya ada yang dari hari-hari. Nah, recommend dok kalau.
Nggak bisa. No comment aku.
No comment.
Bisa. Kalau ditanya kenapa no comment? No comment.
Tapi kalau yang di tempat dokter sekarang.
Itu sama aja kamu ditanya, menurut kamu koin apa yang bakal naik? Nggak bisa kejawab kan?
Tapi yang penting stem cell ya. Harus investasi stem cell ya.
Menurutku itu akan menjadi masa depan, future.
Enggak, tapi untuk orang ini berumur panjang atau sehat, berarti harus mulai invest stem cell ketika kepala 3 dong?
It depends. Nggak bisa, aku nggak bisa jawab lagi. Kamu jangan giring lagi. Tapi intinya akan menjadi future bagi beberapa orang dan akan menjadi breakthrough di industri kesehatan kita. Dulu kan industri kesehatan kita percayanya sama vaksin dan farmasi. Ini tentang stem cell dan operasi non invasif sama anti-aging. Itu alasan kenapa kalau kamu lihat ada beberapa orang tua umur 70 tapi kulitnya 40.
Betul.
Ya, dan itu akan menjadi future kita. Ada 2 negara sih yang 3 negara maju soal itu.
Stem cell ya?
Jerman, Korea, 4 berarti Jerman, Korea, Jepang, Taiwan.
Idealnya dok kalau misal aku mau stem cell nih.
Enggak, kamu kan ada budget. Kamu ke Taiwan sama ke Jepang kamu belajar soal hal itu.
Taiwan sama Jepang ya?
Ya itu jago-jago profesornya di sana.
Siap.
Kalau kamu pengen tahu lebih lanjut, kamu ke Taiwan.
Aku sebenarnya udah minum stem cell udah tahunan sih.
Karena minum.
Ya,
kamu ke Taiwan. Lihat, aku nggak bisa ngomong ya. Kamu intinya ke Taiwan, ada guru di sana, ada univ di sana. Kamu lihat sendiri pakai kepala matamu. Nah, siapa tahu kamu malah berbisnis di situ dan kamu malah memanfaatkan teknologi di situ. Karena teknologi di Indonesia masih ketinggalan jauh soal stem cell ini dari 4 negara ini. Makanya banyak guru-guru kita, guru besar sekarang belajar ke negara-negara ini untuk knowledge ya,
stem cell-nya itu ya.
Tukar ilmu.
Terus dok, selain stem cell, suplemen yang untuk kita ini Gen Z milenial apa aja? Ini aku breakdown.
Milenial mana bisa beli stem cell woy? Yang nggak ada duit mahal kali woy.
Selain stem cell makanya.
Mahal itu woy, buset.
Berapa sih yang minum sekarang kalau di klinik?
Mahal nggak bisa ngomong.
Nggak bisa ngomong.
Pinter dia, nggak bisa. Giringnya pinter ya. Saya sama pinter ya. Jadi nggak bisa ke giring.
Pinter, kalau nggak pinter nggak jadi dokter guys.
Iya, jadi aku nggak akan ke giring ya. Jadi jawabannya gini. Sistematika kesehatan itu adalah kalau kamu makanannya udah variatif, kamu aman. Itu alasan kenapa CR7 dan LeBron itu bisa beraktif bermain sampai seusia 40 karena mereka sewa chef pribadi. Bahkan LeBron aja punya ruangan khusus namanya hyperbaric chamber. Hyperbaric chamber sama ice cool bath-nya sendiri. Investasinya gede. Artinya buat teman-teman sekalian memiliki budget makanan yang variatif, ya udah variatif, itu udah cukup semuanya. Cuman kalau kamu makanannya nggak variatif, baru kamu menambah lewat suplemen. Nah yang paling sering ditambah tuh D3.
D3 ya?
Why? Karena di Indonesia itu kan harusnya kaya matahari.
Betul.
Cuman karena kaya matahari logikanya D3 tinggi kan. Cuman ternyata orang Indonesia kan habitnya kalau keluar kan nutup pakai, karena panas kan.
Takut hitam juga.
Bener, itu beneran itu. Makanya rata-rata defisiensi vitamin 3. Nah vitamin D3 ini cara ditambahnya ya lewat suplementasi.
5.000 IU atau 10.000 IU?
Saya masih paling aman 1.000. 1.000
ya?
sampai 5.000 masih aman. Kalau di atas 5.000 itu kamu harus minta diagnosa dari penyakit dalam atau SPOT. Harus ditambah kalsium.
Berarti standarnya minum D3 1.000 sampai 5.000 IU.
Nah, suplementasi yang kuat itu biasanya kalau usia 35 ke atas adalah B kompleks.
Oh, B kompleks.
Kenapa vitamin B penting? Karena setelah kamu seusia di atas 35, aktivasi neuron, saraf, otot itu kan butuh vitamin B.
Betul.
Dan kita tuh cenderung penyerapannya berkurang. Makanya ditambah suplementasi vitamin B kompleks.
B12 gitu ya?
Iya, B12, B6 gitu. Ya itu kenapa? Karena penyerapan usus kita kan aktivitas molekuler berkurang, vitamin B. Sementara kalau vitamin C, vitamin A dari buah-buahan aman.
Oke, sekarang berikutnya, Dok. Kan sekarang paling sering kan kena mental nih, Dok. Nah, apalagi pengusaha kan under pressure. Kira-kira, Dok, suplemen apa yang untuk bikin mind kita ini lebih calm, bisa menghadapi pressure, nggak overthinking, terutama agensi kan paling sering overthinking ya?
Sebenarnya aku suka main point. Yang pertama ada 2 hal yang dilakuin. Yang pertama adalah kamu harus mengatur ekspektasi dan realita. Rata-rata orang mengalami mental health problem itu karena mereka membuat ekspektasi setinggi mungkin tidak sesuai dengan realita. Nah, ketika hal ini tidak terjadi gap, disappointment ini yang akhirnya ditimbun dan menjadi anger dan terjadi mental health problem. Jadi dari kalian muda umur 15, kamu harus membuat goal yang jelas dan goal yang jelas ini disesuaikan dengan realita. Sehingga nanti di masa yang datang ketika terjadi sesuatu kejadian yang ekspektasi yang nggak sesuai realita, kamu bisa menghadapi itu. Nomor 2, kalau dari makanan adalah hindari makanan-makanan ultra processed food.
Yang proses ya, ya
ultra proses ya. Kalau kamu kayak makan bakso, tapi baksonya memang minimal proses, is oke. Yang kamu hindari itu semua ultra processed food. Karena kalau kamu mengamalkan ultra processed food ini dari muda, itu akan mengganggu kinerja hormonmu. Sehingga nanti kortisolnya naik, dan kortisol itu selain dia meningkatkan gula darah juga, dia juga bisa meningkatkan stres. Jadinya kamu lebih overthinking.
Tapi suplemen nggak ada yang bisa bantu ya untuk OVT atau stres? Ya. Jadi itu mindset ya?
Mindset itu udah mindset. Memang betul, kemarin kan ada guru Jepang tuh bilang, penyakit manusia terdiri dari 90% mindset. Nggak 90% juga sih. Cuman mayoritas memang dari pola pikir kita.
Pola pikir mindsetnya.
Apa yang kamu yakin itu bisa terjadi.
Jadi kalau mau dibetulin bukan minum suplemen atau obat, tapi beresin mindset dulu.
Mindset itu. Karena mindset ini akan ganggu semuanya dalam perspektif hidup ya. Itu kalau menurutku ya. Tapi kalau menurut orang lain ya nggak apa-apa. Itu alasan kenapa ada guru dari Jepang kemarin, dokter dari Jepang. Penyakit semua dari mindset, bukan semua. Aku akan kritisi. Beberapa penyakit memang dihasilkan oleh mindset. Contoh, kita anggap GERD.
Oh ya GERD, betul.
Kita anggap GERD. Itu yang viral di
makanya kenapa obat penenang, obat lambung kan selalu ada penenangnya kan?
Iya, GERD itu kan gastroesophageal reflux disease. Orang GERD itu penyakitnya tuh karena pola makan berantakan. Jadi makannya berantakan, harusnya jam 6 jadi jam 9 dan terjadi terus-menerus. Kedua, karena dia overthinking terus tiap hari. Ketika overthinking, apa yang naik? Simpatis sama kortisol. Yang ketika simpatis kortisol naik, itu asam lambung yang harusnya keluar dari parasimpatis. Jadi kacau. Asam lambung itu harusnya keluar karena aktivasi parasimpatis, tapi malah gara-gara overthinking keluar terus. Nah, padahal nggak ada makanan diolah. Pola makan berantakan kan?
Karena cemas overthinkingnya tadi.
Yang diolah apa? Lambung.
Betul.
Itu karena mindset. Nah, kenapa orang overthinking? Karena mereka cemas akan masa depan.
Iya, betul.
Kamu tidak perlu cemas memikirkan apa yang terjadi di 1 bulan, 2 bulan yang datang. Cemas saya mengenai seminggu aja. Dan kamu cara meminimalisir cemas itu dibuat goal-nya. Goal time map, timetable gitu.
Nah, sekarang yang cukup penting, Dok. Sebagai seorang pengusaha kan kita ini, Dok. Kita kan capek. Tidur siang itu penting nggak, Dok?
Tergantung usia. Di usiaku sekarang 35 tahun, aku memang tidur siang.
Tidur siang, jam berapa? Jam. Kan nggak boleh tidur siang katanya.
Pas lunch, jam 12 sampai 1. Apa? Siapa yang ngomong? Si Mas Timothy ya? Tidur siang katanya
boleh tidur
bayi. Ya karena Timothy umur 24.
Kalau yang kita memang harus tidur siang berarti?
Harus.
Wajib ya?
Aku sih pas dia ngomong itu ketawa. Wah, cuk, isi 6 weh. Mas Timothy itu masih muda. Aku ya kan dengerinnya ketawa juga. Sebenarnya pendapat dia nggak salah. Karena usia 25 tahun, itu jarang yang tidur siang. Coba kamu usia 35.
Wah, iya. Nanti kita tunggu. Bro Timothy waktu 30 lebih ya.
Beneran ya, kalau usia 35, mau kamu angkat beban, fisik sekuat apapun, itu ada 3 hal yang nggak bisa hilang. Cepat, lupa, memori jangka pendek. Aku sering kehilangan kunci-kunci.
Ketika udah 35 ya?
Ya makanya vitamin B komplek.
B komplek itu.
Jadi makanya aku tuh pakai karabiner. Jadi kunci mobilku tak tancep-tancepin. Sering lupa hal kecil. Yang kedua, tidurnya malam tuh jadi berkurang. Jadi semakin kita tua, tidur kita tuh bukan jadi 7 jam, 5 jam udah kebangun sendiri.
Iya. Itu
nah,
yang
makanya kan
kenapa itu?
Ya karena otaknya kan mengecil. Emang makanya kan ada satu hal yang orang kaya tidak bisa buat. Membuat otak tetap besar terus. Nggak bisa itu.
Walaupun pakai suplemen apapun.
Oh gimana otak besar? Makanya akhirnya semakin kita tua, kita tuh cenderung butuh tidur siang. Makanya bapak-bapak kita usia 40 butuh poci.
Mulai tidur siang.
Mas Timothy usia 25.
Ya, masih belum butuh tidur
masih
siang.
Kuat. Coba 35.
Ya.
Aku yakin. Ternyata poci enak. Nah, privilege-nya orang-orang yang kaya raya, itu rata-rata dia tidur siang.
Bisa tidur siang.
Iya, tanpa memikirkan kerjaan. Nah, sementara orang-orang yang umur 35 masih 9 to 5, inilah yang mereka kurang. Akhirnya jadi apa? Stressful. Sleep debt namanya tuh sleep debt. Jadi bangun-bangun lemas, itu kalau tidur siang bangun. Ini nanti saya habis ini nge-gym. Langsung. Tadi saya udah boci.
Udah boci?
10 sampai 11.
Saya belum. Saya nyusul nanti bocinya.
Preferensinya itu.
Oke. Sekarang kita tanya pertanyaan yang paling banyak ditanya oleh follower saya. Nah, sekarang yang paling common kan di kalangan Gen Z, Dok. Itu masalah vape.
Vape tuh?
Ya, vape. Mereka merasa vape itu lebih aman dari rokok. Nah, menurut pendapat dokter, vape sama rokok resikonya sama atau vape itu lebih less risky?
No comment.
Woi, gak boleh no comment, ini penting.
Jawabannya gini.
Jawabannya gimana?
Aku akan jawab dengan bijak sebagai dokter Tirta ya.
Oke.
Aku mantan perokok.
Oke. Berhenti umur berapa?
31 kemarin.
31. Berarti baru 3 tahunan berhenti ya?
Gara-gara lari. Gara-gara lari. Jadi aku sahih nih ya. Jadi subjektif perokok, dokter lagi. Goblok berarti ya. Merokok. Udah saya akui saya tolol. Itu aja. Dulu saya tolol.
Jangan ngerokok, J.
Saya ngerokok dan tolol. Wah, dokter itu ngecap perokok tolol. Enggak, dokter perokok tuh tolol sekali. Saya itu. Jadi saya pernah tolol. Bagi saya, asap dan uap selain oksigen yang dimasukkan ke dalam tubuh tuh nggak bermanfaat. Asap bakar sampah, asap bakar sate, asap kendaraan, asap rokok, uap vape, IQOS apapun, bagi saya semua tidak bermanfaat. Memberikan sesuatu yang tidak bermanfaat ke dalam tubuh, itu ada batas toleransinya. Relate ya?
Ya, paham.
Nos ya? Jadi kamu kena asap kendaraan, lari di pinggir jalan kena asap kendaraan. Tubuh ada toleransinya.
Betul.
Ada silia di sini, bisa disaring. Apa yang terjadi ketika batas itu terlewati? Muncul penyakit, bronkitis kronis, kanker paru. Jadi menurut saya, batas toleransi orang kepada rokok, vape, IQOS, POTS itu beda-beda. Oke? Tapi karena hal itu tidak bermanfaat, sebisa mungkin dikurangi atau ditiadakan. Loh kenapa? Karena batas toleransi orang beda-beda. Kembali ke pertama, kita tidak bisa tahu bahwa Om Ray tahan POTS atau timnya tahan POTS, sementara saya enggak.
Saya nggak ngerokok dan nggak nge-vape.
Ya, karena semua orang itu tidak tahu batas toleransi pribadi orang gimana, sebaiknya dihindari. Nah, terus orang masih bantah, aku yakin.
Iya.
Nah, terus gimana tentang gula? Jawabannya kembali ke tubuh punya pankreas untuk meminimalisir dan mengolah gula. Dan tubuh punya hati untuk menyimpan gula dalam bentuk glikogen.
Iya, betul.
Aku tanya, tubuh punya apa untuk mengolah asap?
Nggak ada.
Cuman menyaring lewat silia. Silia. Nah, kalau ini kebanyakan rokok, gejalanya simpel di awal. Dia batuk, dahaknya putih banget. Di awal. Terutama tengah pagi. Kalau kebanyakan vape, karena uap, basah terus.
Tenggorokannya kerasa basah.
Gitu. Kebanyakan POTS, bibir sama bibir itu
pecah-pecah gitu.
Betul, pecah-pecah, laring. Jadi radang. Makanya rata-rata permasalahan POTS radang laring. Merah semua. Kebanyakan vape yang panas, kobong. Kebanyakan IQOS, kering. Nah, itu kelihatan. Kenapa? Ya karena segala sesuatu yang toleransi berlebihan, tubuh atau mukosa itu nggak bisa tahan. Nah, terus kenapa ada yang kakung tahan? Kembali, toleransinya kuat. Nah, tapi di zaman sekarang, melihat genetik unggul yang tahan asap rokok itu dikit. Eyang kakung kita kuat semua.
Iya, betul.
Pertanyaan kita, seberapa banyak eyang kakung yang zaman dulu tahan asap rokok bisa tahan sekarang? That's it. Dan ingat, hampir semua pengusaha rokok dan vape
Tidak merokok.
ada reason.
Ada reasonnya.
Dan kemarin Jarum habis akuisisi rumah sakit.
Iya, betul.
Artinya dia shifting bisnis nih. Itu dibuat logikanya. Cuman kalau teman-teman mau rokok ya nggak apa-apa. Endingnya kalian akan kembali ke saya sebagai pasien.
Jadi kalau kalian ngerokok dan vape, dia tambah kaya, guys.
Tak buat nanti. Saya tuh punya future. Aku udah buat ini loh, Rey, sama partnerku. Bahwa aku kan sekarang buatnya tuh klinik dermatologi sama wellness sama sport center.
Iya.
Tapi aku pengen buat klinik pemulihan rehabilitasi itu.
Oh, rehabilitasi.
Itu future, itu bisnisku ke depannya. Bisnisku yang terakhir pengen
Karena Indonesia kan jumlah penduduk dengan perokok paling tinggi.
Ya, aku tuh pengen buat rehabilitasi khusus mereka, khusus ini. Itu future-nya. Kalau mau berpartner gak apa-apa.
Oke, boleh. Terus berikutnya, Dok, penyebab kanker yang paling umum, Dok. Nah, ini kan
unknown.
Supaya kita
tak jawab, unknown, idiopatik.
Nggak bisa dicegah berarti? Murni ya?
Nomor 1 tuh rata-rata genetik dan unknown.
Even kita minum obat pencegah pembunuh sel kanker yang vitamin
ya contohnya
gitu.
gini deh, non-Hodgkin lymphoma atau kanker getah bening. Itu ada orang atletis gimana tiba-tiba cancer, gak ada yang tahu. Kenapa? Karena ibaratnya kamu bisa menjamin bahwa semua McLaren itu yang kamu beli aman?
Enggak, pasti ada yang
ada cacat. Itu loh yang kita ngeselin.
Oh itu.
Oke. Itu yang aku nggak tahu. Kita tuh nggak tahu bahwa
genetik kita di mana.
Kita tuh kan dicetak ya. Jadi sel kita tuh dicetak terus, diproduksi terus dari susun tulang belakang, DNA-nya. Nah kadang ada yang DNA-nya ini ngaco dan tiba-tiba diperbanyak. Nah hal ini biasanya ada imunitas kita yang anggap, wah selnya ngawur nih, dihancurkan. Nah kondisi-kondisi yang membuat imunitas kita itu tidak bisa menghancurkan sel ini, itu diperparah sama lifestyle. Lifestyle. Dan terutama lifestyle terkait makanan.
Oke, paham. Nah, terus masih berlanjut lagi nih. Lifestyle Gen Z dan pengusaha kan alkohol, Dok.
Enggak, aku udah enggak.
Ya, aku juga enggak, Cuma kan biasa Gen Z sama yang milenial juga sukanya alkohol, kayak wine, tequila, dan lain sebagainya. Nah, Dok, yang paling aman untuk dikonsumsi ketika baik itu untuk acara sosial event dan lain sebagainya, itu apa?
Nah, ini disclaimer, kalau muslim udah pasti dilarang.
Ya, kita nggak bahas agama deh, kita bahas, kita datang nih diundang ke acara sosial.
Itu udah pertama dulu ya, jadi disclaimer, karena aku muslim, pasti kalau udah muslim, alkohol udah dilarang.
Betul.
Case close tuh.
Case close.
Sekarang nomor 2, bagi orang-orang yang minum alkohol. Jadi udah kedua nih jawabannya. Jawabannya simpel, terkait iklim dulu. Untuk orang-orang yang di daerah tinggal di musim dingin, itu alkohol tuh high kalori. Ada beberapa alkohol yang kalorinya tinggi. Sehingga dia meminum alkohol tersebut untuk menghangatkan tubuh. Itu di beberapa negara iklimnya dingin. Relate itu. Nomor 3, ada yang meminum alkohol itu buat fun. Atau non-muslim ya. Orang yang non-muslim kan nggak dilarang nih. Kan? Jadi sehingga ini harus ada batasannya. Batasannya adalah ketika kepalamu nggak pusing. Jadi tubuh itu ada toleransinya. Tubuh itu punya, hebatnya tubuh kita, kok ya tahu ya. Tubuh kita itu ternyata bisa mengolah alkohol.
Betul.
Dalam bentuk pipis. Dia diolah dalam bentuk pipis. Nah, ketika jumlah alkohol yang masuk dan diolah oleh hati, hepar, untuk keluar ke pipis itu selisihnya terlalu jauh, jadinya alkohol yang beredar itu kan terlalu banyak. Nyampe ke otak, jadinya pusing. Stop. Kalau kamu teruskan itu nanti tambah pusing.
Tapi kalau disuruh kasih preferensi nih, yang paling safe untuk kesehatan, apa itu tequila atau itu wine atau
no comment. Nanti laku dong.
Lo kagak? Secara kesehatan.
Nggak ada, nanti laku. Pinter juga kau.
Oke.
Kalau off the record ku bilangin. Kalau di depan kamera, kalau off the record ku bilangi, tapi kalau di depan kamera
off the record apa?
Udah boleh. Licik juga ada orang ya, babi kali. Nggak bisa, nggak boleh. Jadi intinya tuh batasannya adalah kalau kamu udah ngerasa
pusing harus cut.
Makanya kalau orang jackpot tahu kenapa orang jackpot muntah? Karena tubuh udah nganggap ini kebanyakan, dimuntahin. Itu bukan soal kuat-kuatan, karena tubuhmu udah nggak kuat monyet. Itu kalau paksa lagi 10 tahun lagi yang kasihan. Wah lambungnya ini kuat karena masih muda. Coba nanti 50.
Terus seminggu, Dok, ada batasan nggak, Dok? Minum alkohol ini berapa kali maksimum?
Orang sehari itu bisa.
Sehari boleh?
Hitungannya.
Berarti tiap hari ya disarankan?
Putar matamu. Bayangin sekelas Gabrielnya di mata-mata kita. Saya tuh dokternya tidak peduli pasien itu mau kayak apa.
Oke, berarti tiap hari boleh sekali ya?
Nggak tahu.
Oh, nggak.
Intinya tiap hari tubuh tuh punya mekanisme untuk menetralkan itu.
Oke, berarti setiap hari juga nggak apa-apa, tapi batasnya sedikit aja guys.
Ya, sedikit itu ya kalian Google sendiri. Saya nggak mau ngomong ya.
Ya. Kalau pusing berhenti. Oke. Nah ini penutup terakhir dari
Masih
follower.
ngomong, saya nggak pusing-pusing. Ya terserah kamu lah.
Terus yang terakhir penutup dari follower. Dok, kenapa kok marah-marah terus sih?
Ya bukan, itu naluri.
Oh.
Jadi ini inhaler buat sugesti ya. Enak.
Ini ada follower saya yang tanya, kok bilangin dokter Tita jangan marah-marah terus?
Nggak bisa. Nggak bisa, itu naluri. Naluri. Jadi kenapa saya marah-marah terus? Karena ketika di puskesmas pasiennya bawel. Titik. Saya masih ada, puskesmas masih ada, dan pasien itu bawel. Dan pasien yang bawel itu justru bukan anak muda. Yang orang tua. Saya tuh sudah bisa. Biasanya gini, Jang. Kalau di Jawa, aku ki, kamu orang Surabaya tuh?
Surabaya.
Wah, aku ki luwih tuwes kok kowe. Aku ki luwih urip saka luwih suwe saka kowe.
Oh, gak kena diomongi ya.
Terus tak omongi. Awalnya baik-baik tuh. Ya Mbak, ya nggak apa-apa. Kalau Bapak lebih sepuh, mau anjuran. Lama-lama kok belagu.
Iya.
Minggu depan tak ubah. Aku ki, ya wes toh. Nek jenengan memang lebih hidup lebih lama dari saya, ngapain kesini? Ya beli batu nisan beres. Ngapain berobat? Ngapain berobat? Besoknya berobat.
Besok berobat.
Patuh, itu obat hipertensi. Hipertensi itu kalau obatnya di stop akan naik turun.
Iya.
Semenjak tak gas patuh. Saya berhipotesa, ngegas patuh.
Jadi itu alasannya, bukan karena suka marah ya berarti ya dok ya?
Memang suka marah. Loh, terus nggak takut mati? Kemungkinan besar mati saya itu kan stroke.
Iya.
Bukan mendahului. Ini pasti orang marah-marah tuh matinya stroke. Makanya olahraga.
Oke.
Setidaknya terminimalisir. Karena hobi marah-marah tidak bisa hilang.
Iya. Paham.
Jelas. Tidak peduli pasien saya. Mau sekelas kablere pun nggak gas. Yang penting ya itu, karena sudah tahu prediktornya, kita ibaratnya gini. Kita meminimalisir kapsul jeleknya.
Oke, paham.
Ya, apa choose your own poison.
Choose your poison pill.
Iya.
Okay.
Jadi saya poison pill itu marah-marah. Ya jangan ditambah lagi. Kamu poison pill-nya itu obes, ya diturunkan. Ya kamu rokok, kamu alkohol, kamu obes, mati. Nah, ya itu, jadi memilih. Karena hidup itu kan short ya, menurutku 70 tahun tuh short ya. Nggak bisa, ya aku nggak tahu teknologi, mungkin kamu nanti kaya raya terus kamu bisa hidup 200 tahun.
Amin. Nah, terus dok, terakhir pertanyaan menutup dari follower. Ini juga saya juga penasaran nih. Apa yang bikin ngantuk di siang hari dok? Padahal kita ini udah minum kopi, kita udah rajin olahraga. Kenapa orang itu waktu kerja padahal udah pikir banyak tapi masih bisa ada rasa mengantuk dok?
Capek, usia. Satu usia. Karena
tapi yang muda-muda Gen Z juga begitu, ada yang ini follower saya Gen Z tanya.
Kalau Gen Z muda ngantuk berarti banyakan gula itu.
Oh, banyakan gula ya.
Ya atau sleep debt. Jadi dia tidurnya malam nggak berkualitas. Jadi penyebab orang ngantuk siang tuh banyak. Yang pertama, tidur saat malam tidak berkualitas. Kedua, faktor usia. Karena semakin tua, kapasitas otak kita untuk tidur di waktu malam tuh semakin short. Jadi kita siang harus tidur. Ketiga, hiperglikemi. Ketika kita hiperglikemi, tubuh kita tuh malah justru kekurangan energi ke organnya. Karena gulanya beredar di dalam darah terus. Jadi akhirnya otak memberikan sinyal buat istirahat. Keempat, terlalu banyak pikiran. Terlalu banyak yang dipikirkan. Pengusaha apa yang dipikirkan? Pegawainya, kelangsungannya. Pegawai apa yang dipikirkan? Cicilan. Ya, semua memikirkan banyak hal sehingga energinya banyak yang hilang. Makanya makanya bilang, ini jurnal yang ngomong ya. Jurnal lo.
Jurnal
lo yang ngomong. Tidur siang 45 menit, power nap, itu bagus buat kesehatan jantung di masa tua.
Berarti harus dibiasakan.
Kalau orang yang percaya kripto berarti percaya angka. Orang percaya angka berarti percaya data. Ini data yang ngomong.
Saya sangat based on data.
Nah, dari data mengatakan tidur siang efektif selama 45 menit, itu bisa efektif untuk menunjang kesehatan jantung dan kardiovaskular di masa yang tua. Kamu Google tuh, jurnalnya ada. Manfaat dari advantage dari tidur siang, power nap, 45 menit. Nah, kalau tidur siangnya terlalu lama, itu yang jadi masalah. Tidur siang terlalu lama, lebih dari 2 jam, itu jadi hipersomnia. Jadi kesulitan tidur, hiperfektik, hipersomnia, dan dehidrasi. Jadi tidur siangnya nggak boleh lama. Power nap 45 menit cukup. Kalau di Jepang sekarang, kalau di kantor-kantor yang gede, open work itu, sekarang karyawannya udah disuruh ada tidur siangnya.
Disediakan untuk tempat tidur siang.
Iya.
Oke. Berarti harus ditiru sama perusahaan Indonesia. Wah,
Sama
ini
thrift dong.
anak-anak thrift pasti minta ini habis gini.
Nggak mungkin, menurutku pegawaimu nanti walaupun tidur siang akan tetap main.
Oh, iya.
Itu. Kalau nggak Mobile Legend.
Betul. Betul. Ini contohnya.
Jadi buat kalian masih muda dan kuat tidak tidur siang, itu karena kalian masih muda.
Oke.
Gitu. Itu makanya kan banyak orang kecelakaan di mobil, rata-rata siang.
Oh,
Justru pas malam mereka konsentrasi.
Iya, betul.
Karena ketika malam kita punya defense mechanism, wah nih lagi vacant flight.
Iya.
Tapi pas siang, even mereka vacant flight bisa tidur.
Iya, betul. Betul banget.
Iya, that's it. Kecelakaan microchip
Ini
rata-rata.
word of wisdom hari ini, benar. Karena saya kan aktif di dunia otomotif dan banyak teman-teman yang di...
Kecelakaanmu kemarin siang?
Siang, iya.
Kenapa?
Kebanyakan siang.
Karena ketika siang itu tubuh tiba-tiba microslip.
Betul.
Tapi ketika malam, kok bisa padahal jam tidur?
Iya.
Karena ketika malam kita nggak tidur, tubuh tuh ngasih sinyal, ini vacant flight, adrenalin naik, adrenalin naik, kortisol naik, jadi kita standby. Siangnya baru, capeknya baru pagi, subuh kan. Nah, tapi ketika siang, kita sudah mencegah standby, tetap capek. Kenapa? Karena itu utang tidur dari malamnya. Makanya kalau siang udah ngantuk, mau kamu sudah kerasa lir, jadi jangan dipaksain, berhenti. Karena kalau kamu nyetir 20 km per jam, meleng 2 detik, itu sepele. Kamu nyetir hypercar,
iya. 1 detik tidak boleh meleng.
Tapi kamu keren, kamu ganti kan. Ganti mobil baru, terus
lebih mahal lagi.
Terus mobilnya habis berapa itu? Kamu boleh cerita gak itu? Habis berapa kamu memperbaiki?
Harganya jangan, nggak boleh.
Part apa yang diganti?
Jadi kalau di Lambo itu kayak ada jadi Lambo Revolto yang baru itu per part. Jadi dia part depan, tengah, sama belakang. Jadi ya tinggal diganti aja kayak.
Berapa lama itu?
Cepat kalau duitnya banyak tinggal beli aja.
Berarti sama kayak kesehatan ya?
Iya. Oke. Jadi itu guys, podcast kita bareng Dr. Tita, semua tentang kesehatan. Kalau ada pertanyaan nanti boleh komen di IG saya ataupun di TikTok saya. Kita lanjut nanti di episode kedua. Bungkus!
Yoi.
Don't worry, just download Gear Up Booster. You just need to click Boost FC25. Now FC25 is loading so fast. With Gear Up Booster, you can play FC25 smoothly. You can see ping below 10 milliseconds. It supports over 2,000 games. Get a free trial download, the link in the video.
Most pro firm out there, they make for you wait for the reward and put some extra pressure with hidden.
Kali ini, gue akan bahas mengenai rahasia orang kaya yang jarang mereka mau sebar ke publik. Karena kebanyakan orang kaya yang gue tahu, itu rata-rata semuanya elitis. Mereka kebanyakan itu tidak mau cerita apa yang mereka tahu di luar dari circle-nya. Banyak yang gue tahu, itu punya circle mungkin hanya 5-10 orang. Ya. Dan rata-rata teman-temannya itu semua pengusaha-pengusaha besar juga yang lainnya. Dan mereka tidak mau informasi ini keluar dari lingkungannya. Pernah nggak kalian duduk diam dan mikir, kenapa kekayaan itu hanya dipegang oleh segelintir orang dan tidak pernah datang ke tangan kalian? Dan kali ini, di sini gue pengen bongkar rahasia yang orang kaya ketahui, yang mungkin banyak dari kalian di sini nggak tahu, supaya kalian bisa belajar pola pikirnya itu seperti apa oleh orang yang memiliki aset yang luar biasa besar. Dan mungkin beberapa prinsip dari yang kalian pelajari di sini itu bisa kalian aplikasikan di kehidupan kalian sehari-hari. Ini adalah pengalaman yang mungkin gue dapatkan dari berbagai macam konglomerat di berbagai macam industri. Kita bisa ngomong dari tambang batu bara, tambang nikel, sawit, tambang emas, perbankan, segala macam industri. Itu gue udah ketemu dan gue udah pernah ngobrol. Orang kaya itu banyak yang keliru. Mereka itu bukan cuma sekedar hoki. Tapi orang yang berhasil untuk mengumpulkan uang yang luar biasa, itu bahkan bisa baca peta yang kalian nggak tahu mulai bacanya seperti apa. Banyak orang yang kita sebut kurang mampu, itu ketika mereka mau menjadi kaya dan mereka melihat orang kaya, mereka kan gampang sekali menyebutkan kata-kata yang namanya hoki. Tapi orang kaya itu tahu betul bahwa hoki saja bisa diciptakan. Mereka lah yang lari-lari sendiri ya, networking, ketemu orang sana sini untuk menciptakan yang namanya hoki. Kebanyakan orang dari kecil tuh diajarkan ketika kita kerja yang rajin, kita menabung yang rajin, ya, kita sekolah yang rajin, kita akan menjadi orang yang sukses. Simple, disuruh nabung, ya disuruh kerja keras, disuruh sekolah. Orang kaya itu hidup dengan aturan yang berbeda dan juga cara yang berbeda. Mereka itu bisa kontrol yang namanya flow informasi dari paling atas. Mereka bisa shaping, ya. Bagaimana kalian itu berpikir apa, gimana caranya kalian jadi pribadi yang lebih konsumtif, gimana caranya kalian nggak jadi pribadi yang pengen berinvestasi yang compounding, daripada investasi, kalian mendingan konsumsi, ya. Gimana caranya publik itu ngerasa mereka lebih baik untuk beli iPhone, ya. Bekas pun paksain aja nggak apa-apa, dibanding mikir untuk berinvestasi. Orang kaya itu mikir, gimana caranya nge-push dunia ini supaya percetakan uang semakin cepat. Gimana caranya bikin dunia ini jadi dunia yang hyperinflasi. Kenapa? Ketika dunia hyperinflasi, orang yang kurang mampu itu akan kesulitan beli makanan, kesulitan beli baju, kesulitan beli tempat tinggal. Di saat orang kaya itu mereka yang punya tempat tinggalnya, mereka yang punya pabrik bajunya, ya, dan mereka yang punya tempat bikin makanannya. Dan yang kalian perlu tahu di sini, ya, untuk jadi kaya itu nggak perlu lahir dari keluarga yang kaya. Ini miskonsepsi yang banyak sekali orang-orang kurang mampu itu ngomong bahwa sulit untuk menjadi kaya tanpa punya apapun. Tapi kebanyakan orang kaya yang gue tahu, ya, jagoan-jagoan di sawit, di batu bara, di kita lihat ekonomi digital, itu kebanyakan dari mereka justru itu mulai dari nol, bahkan dari minus. Jadi kalau lu udah pasang yang namanya limiting belief di otak lu bahwa oke, saya tidak bisa karena saya kondisinya itu berbeda, maka kalian nggak akan pernah nyampe titik itu. Semua rahasia yang gue ngomong di sini itu sebenarnya bebas untuk semua orang cari. Rahasia ini akan datang untuk mereka yang fokus untuk mencari rahasianya. Untuk mereka yang menolak, oke, saya tidak mau hidup jadi orang biasa. Saya nggak mau nih hidup bisa-bisa aja. Saya mau punya uang supaya saya bisa bermanfaat untuk orang lain. Gue dari kecil sekali, ya, gue percaya bahwa takdir itu bukan sesuatu yang pasti. Tapi takdir itu bisa ditulis, ya. Kita bisa jadi nahkoda atas hidup kita sendiri. Hidup kita itu kan ada outcome, ya. Ada input, ada outcome. Hasil yang di ujung, itu bisa kita lihat dari apa yang kita tanam. Kalian nggak bisa di sini kalian tanam pohon pisang, ya. Kalian berharap dapetnya apel. Atau lu berharap
정당이게요. 예상이 안 가죠? 오늘은 바로 파파존 시작 날입니다. 저희가 벌써 3년째 맞죠? 3년째 함께하고 있어요, 파파존스. 저희 숙소 근처에도 파파존스가 있어서 저희 얼굴이 참 파파존스 시켜먹는 분들이 많은데요. 저희 얼굴이
Aaron David Miller, Senior Fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, who's going to recap the Trump-Putin summit and, more importantly, preview what we might see in Washington, D.C. this afternoon. So we've got a lot of economics, got a lot of earnings, and we've got a lot of geopolitics, and it's Lisa Mateo and Paul Sweeney with you. Right now, let's kick it all off with John Tucker in a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, not a lot of movement because there's so much we're waiting to happen. This Bloomberg Business Flash being brought to you by IBKR. Will the median new home sales price exceed $430,000 in July 2025? At IBKR Forecast Trader, the yes was recently at 34%. To check the data, spot the trends, start predicting today at ibkr.com/forecast. Last trading day for this contract is August 25th. Let me start off with data. Home builder confidence falling this month. So right now it's matching the lowest level since 2022. The report shows that building contractors are having to increase their already liberal use of sweeteners to get people to buy these homes. And let me check Toll Brothers, one of the home builders, that stock right now. It is a little changed, appearing some of the earlier advances earlier in the morning. Again, not much movement in the averages. S&P 500, after hovering around a record last week, unchanged at 64.49. The Dow Jones Industrial Average 47 points lower, and the Nasdaq 100 right now is 13 points lower. Traders waiting for some word on progress to end the Ukraine war and any hints on monetary policy from the Fed confab that's taking place in Jackson Hole. We also expect to get some reading on the health of the consumer as major retailers, including Walmart, they're going to report their earnings results this week. ADRs of Novo Nordisk, they are climbing this morning. They're up 4.8%. The company slashing the cost of Ozempic for cash-paying patients after the diabetes shot became kind of the poster child for high U.S. drug prices. You can now get Ozempic for $499. That's $499 a month, about half of its U.S. list price. And we check the markets for you all day long right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash. Paul and hi, Lisa. She's back.
Good morning.
She's
Yes,
back.
I'm back.
Yes. She's been working. Like she did the what's the show before surveillance?
Daybreak.
For like 2
What's
hours.
the show before surveillance? Oh, brother.
Daybreak. So she
I've
did
been
that.
going since early.
And then, yeah, so she's been here. We can't get rid of her. All right, let's take a look at some of the stocks on the move today. I'm Paul Sweeney alongside the Lisa Mateo, and we're joined by Bloomberg's Tatiana Daria. Tatiana, what are you looking at today?
Well, it's Deals Monday in the mid-cap space, Paul, as you mentioned earlier. Starting off with Dayforce, your ticker is DAY, up about 27% right now after Bloomberg reported that buyout firm Thoma Bravo is in talks to acquire the HR management software provider. The deal would take the company private as soon as the coming weeks, our sources tell us. Today's rally gives the company a market value of about $11 billion, and that's up from about $8 billion on Friday. So even though we don't have financing details here, that gives you an indication of what investors are expecting. And to just give you a little bit of context, the stock was down about 27% through Friday, down about 60% from its 2021 peak. That's after it saw a big boom after the post-pandemic reopenings. But since then, companies have been pulling back. So it's interesting what this actually tells you about the economy, right? In this uncertain times where companies are pulling back on some of their capital expenditures.
All right, Tatiana, one of the things you know, Paul Sweeney has the in to like all the fancy places, right? In the city, in Vegas, he knows where to go, right? They let him in. But one place I have been that Paul Sweeney has not been
Exactly.
is Soho House.
Wow.
That would have been my question first, Paul. Have you been there? Because this was I'm new to this company. I have to say, Soho House. It's kind of a co-working space, often compared to WeWork. The ticker there is SHCO, up about 16%. This is after a group of investors led by hotel owner MCR agreed to buy the company in a $2.7 billion deal. It calls itself as a club for creatives, where suits, ties, and corporate attire are discouraged. So curiously,
that's not me.
not you.
I'm not the demo.
It doesn't cater to people working in finance or politics, but rather to the more creative classes. So it will be very interesting to see what the new sort of owners do with this. Do they continue with this strategy, or do they choose to sort of branch out in this other avenues? And the price there is a premium of about 80% over the stock's closing price in December, on December 18th. We go back to that date because that's the date we finally found out that they received an offer. And since then, shares have been rallying about 50%. Yeah, it looks like co-working places are a great idea, but just a very difficult business model.
Okay, very good. How about United Healthcare?
United Healthcare, another name on the move today, up about 2%. This is more like extending the rally that we've seen on Friday when we learned that Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway and other investors bought shares in the insurer. Among those investors, David Tepper's Appaloosa, some of the world's wealthiest management, like George Soros investment firm. So this is great relief for this stock that has been so beaten down this year. I mean, shares are still down about 40%. And I just had a look at their valuation. So the PE ratio there is about 18, which is lower than the 5 and the 10-year averages. So that tells you that those value investors are onto something there, but it will just take a lot of time to shift this boat around.
Tatiana, thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. Tatiana Dere covers all the markets for Bloomberg News. For more conversations Like this one, subscribe to our new Stock Movers Reports. Listen for 5-minute audio reports on the biggest winners and losers in the stock market. Subscribe to Stock Movers on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere you listen. All right, this to me, I think, is an ideal summer weather environment. You wake up mid-50s, have a day of sunshine where it tops out in the mid-80s. No humidity. How's that?
That's better
That
than
sounds
here.
like that sounds like Jackson Hole, Wyoming, which is why all the smart people in the world of economics get out there every year at this time, and that includes Michael McKee, international economics and policy correspondent for Bloomberg News. Mike, you're back out there in Jackson Hole. Another tricky one for Fed Chairman Jay Powell because the data seems to be all over the place, but the market's pushing for a rate cut. What's the feeling as you get to meet all these people out there in Jackson Hole this week?
Well, I think most people are expecting the Fed to be as careful as they can be. They don't want to make things worse in either direction. They just don't know which way the market, the economy is going. The markets have decided, as you said, that we should have a rate cut in September, but that's a month away. We're going to get another CPI report, and the inflation numbers that we had last week weren't good. And we're going to get another jobs report. And the jobs report we got last month wasn't good. So the Fed's mandate's being pulled in two directions. So my guess is that Jay Powell will try to finesse it and say, we can go either way, but we're not ready to say which way yet.
Now, what about the tone he's going to take, Mike? Because it's not only about rates, but it's also his last speech to the annual symposium before his term expires next May. So is it going to be like a reflection more so, or how do you see it?
Well, we've had a lot of Fed officials make their last Jackson Hole speeches here, and none of them have really done that. They've left it up to other people at the meetings to talk about them, and we've had that. We've had a lot of people who have said nice things about Janet Yellen, had nice things to say about Ben Bernanke, and in 2005 it was quite a famous event when Alan Greenspan finally left the chairmanship. The whole conference was dedicated to what had happened during his term. I don't think we're going to do that again, given what happened a couple of years after that meeting with the great financial crisis, but we would expect others to say nice things.
Hey, Mike, what's the level of consensus for the Federal Open Market Committee here as you head into Jackson Hole here? Because again, boy, the economic data, you could read it one way, things are pretty darn good, or you could read it the other way that, boy, if you look under the surface, there's some troubling signs out there. How's the consensus?
It's really hard to tell because the numbers are not good either way, but they're not terrible either way. What we saw was inflation creeping into the CPI and PPI from tariffs, but not a huge amount yet. It could be, though, by the time we get to the September meeting. We saw the dismal jobs report in terms of jobs created, but the unemployment rate is still very low. So both are giving us mixed signals. The market would like the lower rates because it will increase their value, the value of equities, and everybody wants to see their stocks go up. But the Fed is more concerned with whether we're going to see inflation pick up more than the economy slows or vice versa.
Mike, in the last minute or so we have here, you talked about the data, but what about the increasing pressure from President Trump, the Trump administration? I mean, how much of that is going to play a factor into what's said?
It's not going to play any factor. The Fed chair, Jay Powell, doesn't want to talk about it, so he won't bring it up. And even if he's questioned by somebody, he'll say it's just part of the job, and we're not focused on that. We're focused on the economy. And I think the rest of the Fed will say the same. They'll talk about how Powell is doing a great job, because they've been doing that, but they aren't going to acknowledge any pressure from the president is going to affect them. It hasn't traditionally affected the Fed, and the good news for Jay Powell is he's only got like 6 more months to go, so he can let it roll off his shoulders because there's not much the president can do to him.
Mike, do us all a favor. Go to the Western store out there. Get Tom Keene an outfit, because I think if you don't, he's going to wear his suit and his bow tie all Thursday and Friday when he's reporting from out there.
We have tried, and he fights that idea, but maybe we can get him a bolo tie.
Yeah, that might work. That could be a nice medium there.
I feel like he would do the boots. He would do the cowboy
Yeah, I could see
boots,
the boots and the bolo tie and the suit. That could be a look for him. Michael McKee, thank you so much for joining us. Michael McKee, he's international economics and policy correspondent for Bloomberg News. He is live from Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Again, big conference as economists gather out there. And again, Friday speech, Fed Chairman Jay Powell, full surveillance coverage of that Friday. This is Bloomberg. Good morning.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker in the Bloomberg Newsroom with this Bloomberg Business Flash, and we're being brought to you by Oracle. Attention growing businesses, Oracle offering to cut your current cloud bill in half if you move to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. This for new U.S. customers with minimum financial commitments. See if your company qualifies at oracle.com/Bloomberg. Not a lot of movement with the major averages as we wait from Jackson Hole, the Fed officials there, and what monetary policy is going to be like moving forward. Jerome Powell is set to address the confab come this Friday. Also waiting for some word out of Washington, D.C. as President Trump and European leaders meet whether or not there's going to be some sort of a peace framework for the war between Ukraine and Russia. Novo Nordisk slashing the cost of Ozempic for cash-paying patients. Patients cannot get Ozempic for $4.99 a month, about half of its U.S. list price, through Novo's cash-pay pharmacy, NovoCare. They're also partnering with GoodRx Holdings to offer Ozempic and its sister weight loss drug Wegovy for the same price at pharmacies across the United States. ADRs of Novo Nordisk, those shares 5% higher right now. United Health Group shares, they're up just about 2.25%, set to extend the 12% rally on Friday after Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway bought shares in the health insurer. TeraWulf shares, the ticker symbol here, WULF. Those shares are up over 17%, reversing some of the earlier declines. This comes after Google agreed to boost its stake in the Bitcoin miner and data center operator to about 14%. And later, we're going to get to earnings after the close from Palo Alto Networks. Tomorrow, we're going to hear from Home Depot, Wednesday, Lowe's, and Target, and then Walmart later in the week. Of course, the big focus is going to be for the commentary on the health of the U.S. consumer. Like, is Lisa still buying stuff?
Lisa's on hold right now.
Really? Well, that's an early economic indicator.
Yes.
Anyway, we check the markets for you all day long, right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That's your Bloomberg Business Flash. It's like live Lisa data as it happens.
Thank you very much. John Tucker, as always. We do have some possible deal-making news. So sources saying Thoma Bravo, when talks to buy human resources management software provider Dayforce and take the company private. So what does this all mean? Well, we have the right person to break it all down for us. It's Niraj Patel. He's Bloomberg Intelligence Senior Software Analyst. Niraj, you're joining us from Princeton. Thanks for joining. I want you to see if you can talk to us about Dayforce, because I'm reading through the article. It says shares are falling about 60% from their 2021 peak through Friday. Can you talk about some of the things that this company has been struggling with?
Yeah, hi, Lisa. This has been even beyond a Dayforce struggling point. The HCM industry, which they play in, the HR and payroll software, that has been under pressure along with application software. And just for a little bit of valuation perspective, application software companies, they're in the 17th percentile of their historical range, and Dayforce is at an all-time low. And this is telling because they are facing a lot of deceleration on the top line. They, in 2021, 2022, they were at 22% sales growth. Now we're looking at 11% for this year and next year. And there's a lot of factors coming into play here. They have a lot of competition. The customers are slowing in terms of new ads, as well as the upsell and cross-sell to existing customers.
So is this just the spending and human resources part of the pie? Is that slowing, or is it competition here? What's the problem for some of these companies?
Yeah, their competition push is limited. They play in the larger enterprise segment, so they run into UKG or Workday. So it's not so much competition, but it's a little bit of a macro trend. You have the U.S. labor non-farm payroll additions, which decelerate significantly, and that's growing at about a 1% pace. It averages 2 to 3%. So we have a macro factor. Second, they have a portfolio which is common to a lot of peers. So there's a lot of portfolio convergence in HR software. It's covering like payroll scope, account administration, workforce management, talent management, learning management. So these players have all converged on the same portfolio. They're trying to push that sale, but there's only a limiting sale per customer that they're able to translate to. For example, they're selling about $13 of software per employee, and it's only growing at a 5% pace.
Now, Niraj, were you surprised by this report? Because it seems like from how you were talking, I mean, kind of this path was leading to the way it is that this report came out today.
Yeah, no, this didn't catch us by surprise in the sense that we're expecting more consolidation. Paycheck acquired Paycor in April, and that was a smaller player that targeted more small SMB segments. This player, Dayforce, they're targeting a large mid-market customer, so we're not surprised. The valuations are quite low. The one positive factor here is HCM ranking in terms of AI disruption across app software is on the lower side. Sales and marketing is on the higher end. IT service management is on the higher end. So that may be a little bit of the appeal coming from Thomas Bravo's lens, where the AI agents are not going to take over the app function in HR software so easily.
Neeraj, thanks so much. We appreciate it. Neeraj Patel, he's a senior software analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence down there in our Princeton office. Looking back at these markets, again, still kind of a mixed tape out there. Not a lot of direction, but boy, this has been a wild year to date for these equity markets with a big 20% sell-off earlier in the year on that initial tariff discussion from the White House. And then, boy, we've gotten that all back and then some. And somebody who's been there and has been through many, many cycles in these markets is Phil Orlando, Chief Equity Market Strategist and Head of Client Portfolio Management at Federated Hermes. Phil, the Fed Reserve and some other economists that will be gathering out in Jackson Hole this week. We will hear from Fed Chairman at the end of the week. People are really kind of split on what this Fed could do, should do in September. How are you guys approaching it?
No, I mean, that's a fair point. And first of all, Paul, thank you very much for having me back on the program. I do think that Jackson Hole is going to be critically important this year with the follow-on to what does the FOMC do at their next policy-setting meeting on September 17th. Our view is that Powell, when he delivers his speech on Friday morning, which I guess is 8 o'clock their time, 10 o'clock our time, will provide us some clues because he is supposed to be talking about the labor market, inflation, monetary policy, and those are all the things that the market's focused on. So as we take a step back and look at the Fed's dual mandate, there's no question in our mind that the economy has slowed as measured by GDP, the private domestic final sales component, over the last year or so. And the labor market has also slowed. And that's one of the Fed's two dual mandates, full employment. The bugaboo, I guess, is that there are some members of the FOMC committee, the voting members, are concerned about what might inflation look like in coming months and quarters based upon President Trump's policies with regard to things like immigration, tariff, trade, et cetera. Now, inflation is in pretty good shape in our view. It's, just off of a 4-year low as opposed to where we were, 4 or 5 years ago at a 41-year high. But there's some concern looking forward as the tariff situation works its way through the pipeline. Are we looking at a potential explosion of inflation? And is it prudent for us to sort of sit tight and do nothing? Our view is that the Federal Reserve should start to cut interest rates in September. We think there will be 6 quarter-point cuts looking out over the next 18 months or so, taking the upper band of the funds rate from 4.5% now down to about 3%. And we'd love to see Powell provide us with some meat on the bones, with his speech on Friday morning.
Now, Phil, you mentioned a couple of things there. One of the things you mentioned was GDP. Can you dive more into the underlying trend that we've seen with GDP?
Sure. So I referenced not GDP overall, but the sort of the core component of it, the private domestic final sales component. And that's comprised of 3 things: personal consumption, corporate capex, and housing, residential construction. Now, the housing market's in tough shape. There's no other way to slice that. And we need lower interest rates in order to get that going. But the other 2 pieces are in pretty good shape. That you look in consumer spending, which accounts for about 70% of GDP. And we saw a nice uptick in July spending with a positive revision in June. So the back-to-school season is going pretty well. The Marpril season, the March, April, Easter season went pretty well. So the consumer's still spending. In that part, we're pretty good. Now, the other thing, the corporate CapEx thing, as a result of the one big beautiful bill being passed, last month, the single most important component of that, in our view, was the fact that we're going to see 100% expensing of CapEx spending. Now, we saw a decline in productivity growth at the very beginning of the year. The reason we saw that, we believe, is because companies, knowing what was likely to be in the bill, were holding back their CapEx spending, saying, let's wait until we see what the president's able to pass, and then we will come forward with a tsunami of CapEx in the back half of calendar 25 and all through calendar 26. We think that's coming. And so as a result, the personal consumption's in pretty good shape. Corporate CapEx, we think, is going to move materially higher. We think the housing market will pick up over the next 18 months as the Federal Reserve cuts interest rates. So the lull that we're seeing in GDP right now is justification, we think, for the Fed to cut interest rates in order to facilitate much stronger GDP growth in calendar 26 versus calendar 25.
Phil, thanks so much for joining us. Always appreciate getting your insights there. Phil Orlando, he's the Chief Equity Market Strategist and Head of Client Portfolio Management. He's over there at Federated Hermes and really constructive on the markets, gives us some good thoughts on both sides of the equation here. And again, as we think about Jackson Hole, I'm not sure what the Fed can do, Lisa, other than, we're looking at the data. We've still got some more data between now and our Fed meeting, so stay tuned. But the market's kind of pricing in.
Yeah, and it's a lot of pressure. I mean, it's his last, speech before, the symposium, and what are people, thinking as far as, President Trump's pressure and the Trump administration on him as well.
Yep, exactly. So we'll have to see kind of where a new Fed chairman comes from where and what that person's policy thoughts are. So a lot for the market to discount as it looks towards Fed policy. And again, we'll have full coverage. Michael McKee is out there for the week covering all the economic doings out there. And then Bloomberg Surveillance will have a live show from Jackson Hole on Friday. Tom Keene, Lisa Abramowitz, and Marie Hordern, they will all be there. So we'll have details of that coming up later in the week. But that'll be on Friday morning and have the speech for President Jay Powell at the conference out there. Markets, just a little bit of red on the screen. Nothing moving really at this point here. Yields on a 10-year Treasury pretty much unchanged, 4.32%. On your 10-year Treasury. WTI crude oil, $62.50.